In our headlines on this Friday, January 17th, here in South Korea. President Yoon Suk-yeol maintains his right to silence today as well, refusing to attend yet another session of questioning following a similar stance on Thursday, during which his legal team claimed the president had shared all he had to say. And the ongoing political unrest is dampening Korea's economic prospects, according to the Finance Ministry in its January assessment, adding that there is greater downward pressure on the local economy amid the presence of risk factors, both at home and abroad. Meanwhile, Korea Electric Power Corporation, as well as its unit Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power, have sealed a deal with Westinghouse Electric Corporation to end the dispute over intellectual property and to enhance partnership in the global nuclear power market. We start with the latest on the investigation by anti-corruption officials as the president refuses to attend today's questioning session as well. For more, Arirang's Kim Bo-kyung joins me live from the Kwachon Government Complex where the anti-graft agency is located. Bo-kyung, it's good to have you on. So how are investigators responding to the president's refusal to answer questions?
Hello, Sunny. As you have already mentioned, impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol again refused to appear for the questioning over his December 3rd martial law declaration. He was supposed to be here at 10 a.m. His refusal comes after failing to appear the previous day, too, citing his health conditions. One CIO official said that there has been no notification from Yoon's side over his non-attendance this time around. Given that the 48-hour deadline to detain Yoon will end at around 9 p.m. tonight, the CIO says re-summoning Yoon would be realistically unlikely. Yoon's not appearing is not a surprise. One of his lawyers, Hak Dong-hyun, has already said that Yoon had thoroughly stated his basic position during questioning on the first day and does not see any reason or need to respond to a question and answer type of interrogation. Now, the CIO is widely expected to request a detention warrant sometime before Friday's deadline of 9 p.m., which would allow them to detain him for up to 20 days. The CIO announced that it is highly likely that they will request a detention warrant from the Seoul Western District Court, as it is typical to ask it from the court that issued the arrest warrant. Though the exact time of the request has not yet been decided, the CIO official said it is almost finalized. Regarding whether Yoon will be present at the warrant review himself, his lawyer said it is difficult to make a prediction as the warrant has not been filed yet, but his legal team will strongly argue the necessity of it. Meanwhile, police executed an arrest warrant for Kim Sung-hoon, the deputy chief of the Presidential Security Service, for allegedly leading efforts to prevent Yoon's arrest from happening.
Right, I see. Meanwhile, Bo-kyung, I hear public rallies in support of the president remain intense at a number of different locations.
That's right, Sunny. Behind me are some of supporters of Yoon protesting against the CIO. And his supporters have also been rallying in front of the Seoul Detention Center, where President Yoon is currently chanting things like, "Release the president." Pro-Yoon protests are taking place in front of the Seoul Western District Court as well, where the detention warrant is expected to be requested. Protests were held last night as well, with people forming a human chain to block officials from the CIO in case they come to deliver the detention warrant documents. This even led to clashes with police, with one man taken into custody at around 10:50 p.m. on Thursday for the obstruction of the performance of official duties after he attempted to close a gate. That is all I have for now, but I will bring you more updates in our later newscast. Back to you, Sunny.
All right, Bo-kyung, thank you for that coverage. That was our Kim Bo-kyung reporting live from the Corruption Investigation Office for high-ranking officials. Now, as mentioned, the president has refused to revisit the anti-graft headquarters for questioning, choosing instead to remain at the Seoul Detention Center. Our Kim Jang-sil reports.
President Yoon Suk-yeol continues to refuse investigative procedures. The Corruption Investigation Office for high-ranking officials had asked Yoon to show up for questioning on Friday morning, but he didn't turn up. Since his arrest on Wednesday, Yoon has remained silent. During his initial 10-hour interrogation, he declined to answer questions, verify his testimony, or sign documents. On Thursday, President Yoon postponed the morning questioning due to health concerns and skipped a rescheduled afternoon session. The president has consistently argued that the investigation by the CIO is illegal, but legal experts disagree.
It's true that CIO does not have specific jurisdiction over insurrection, but what they do have is the jurisdiction to look at any related crime, and here they are investigating Yoon's abuse of office. So it's entirely within their jurisdiction, so there's absolutely no problem.
Professor Cho added that despite Yoon's silence, the CIO would still be able to indict him. Yoon is currently being held in a pretrial detention cell separate from other detainees. The facility provides basic amenities such as a bed, table, and toilet. He's been given the same food as provided to other detainees, costing around 1,700 Korean won or about $1.2 per serving to make. The Justice Ministry has assigned a special team to monitor Yoon's safety around the clock. Meanwhile, Yoon's legal team has filed complaints against the investigation, challenging his arrest. Due to his continued silence and refusal to cooperate, authorities are considering alternatives such as on-site questioning or possibly forcibly escorting him for questioning, though this remains unlikely. Pundits suggest a detention warrant could be requested based on existing evidence and testimonies. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, the Constitutional Court has agreed to expedite the testimony of former Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun as earlier requested by President Yoon Suk-yeol's defense team. Now, earlier on this Friday, the court's press officer, Chun Jae-hyun, announced that Kim would testify first on January 23rd, that is next Thursday, 2 weeks earlier than initially scheduled. The court has also approved requests by the presidential legal team for documents related to the National Election Commission amid their allegations that is, of election fraud, which they add was the basis for the president's brief imposition of martial law on December 3rd. Moving on to the National Assembly now, ruling and opposition lawmakers have yet to find common ground on drafting a bill that paves the path to a special probe into the president's short-lived martial law. Our correspondent Ishihu is on the line with the latest. Shiu, let's begin with today's bipartisan meeting for this particular probe bill.
Yes, Sunny, the floor leaders of the rival parties, the PPP's Kwon Sung-dong and the DP's Park Chan-dae, met for closed-door talks beginning at 1:30 this afternoon, and the talks are still taking place as we speak. Now, the presider over the meeting, the National Assembly Speaker Woo Won-sik, has urged both to make concessions so that an agreement can be reached today. He's gone so far as to even suspend this afternoon's plenary session to wait for a potential consensus, but it's unclear whether the parties will be able to reach an agreement today. The talks were originally scheduled to start at 11 this morning, but were delayed by over 2 hours as the PPP took longer than expected to fine-tune the details of its proposal. Now, prior to the meeting just this morning, PPP floor leader Kwon urged the DP to abandon their bill that he said was unconstitutional. Listen in.
There is no need for a special counsel, but the DP is using the power of a major party to pass an unconstitutional, illegal bill full of toxic clauses. So we're compelled to choose the worst option over the worst one. This is why we're developing our version of the special counsel bill.
Kwon added additional investigations were unnecessary as ongoing probes by several authorities are already taking place. He said the DP is using the bill for political gain. Now, this came while the DP floor leader Park urged the ruling party to cooperate with the DP's efforts and to come to the negotiating table.
If we don't remove the deep-seated fine roots of the insurrection, they will sprout again. To prevent the recurrence of unfortunate incidents, a special prosecution should be conducted to find out the truth in a transparent manner and to strictly punish those who were involved.
DP spokesperson Park Sung-jun also told reporters that if the PPP comes up with an insincere bill today to defend Yoon, the DP will proceed with its version without further negotiations. Now, the deadline for talks presented by the DP is midnight tonight. If an agreement isn't reached by then, they will put up their bill for an assembly-wide vote. Meanwhile, acting President Choi Sang-mok previously urged the rival parties to reach an agreement and has hinted that if a compromise isn't reached, it's likely he may veto a unilateral bill from the opposition. Park called out this remark by Choi, urging that he should respect any decision by the National Assembly and accept the special counsel bill.
Right, so Shu, just for the sake of clarity, what exactly are the sticking points within the bill between the rival parties?
Right, Sunny. The biggest differences are in the scope, depth, and the period of investigation. Now, the primary focus of the opposition's bill proposed earlier this month is to uncover whether President Yoon unlawfully instigated an insurrection and violated the Constitution in the process. The PPP's version, however, removes these allegations of insurrection and also that of the inducement of foreign aggression. It aims to look into 5 specific allegations overall in comparison to the 11 presented by the opposition. Now, the PPP's bill also shortens the investigation period to a maximum of 110 days compared to the DP's 150. As for the size of the investigation team, the PPP is pushing for a team of 58, while the DP is aiming for 155. The PPP argues DP's plan would require an unnecessarily large budget of 30 billion Korean won to execute. The DP responded that the PPP was trying to cut corners and waste time. Now, overall, this is the second attempt by the opposition to push a bill of this kind. The initial version of the bill was vetoed by acting President Choi 2 weeks ago. The opposition's goal this time is to have the special counsel officially go into effect before the upcoming Lunar New Year holiday. Sunny?
Right, the Lunar New Year holiday, which comes at the end of this month then. Shiu, thank you for that clarification and for the report from the Parliament. Korea's political instability appears to be casting a darker cloud of uncertainty over its economy amid the presence of, quote, greater downside pressure. Our correspondent Lee Soo-jin explains.
South Korea is seeing greater downside risks to its economy as uncertainties grow both at home and abroad. The somber assessments from the latest Economic Green Book, a monthly economic assessment report released by the Finance Ministry on Friday.
The term concerns about increased downside risks was previously used, but has now been replaced with greater downside pressure. This change reflects the negative trends observed across industries during both October and November.
It presents a bleaker outlook compared to last month's report when the government omitted the phrase economic recovery for the first time in over a year, as January's report also includes concerns about employment, an area where the government had previously been largely optimistic. In December, South Korea saw its first year-on-year decrease in employment figures in more than 3 years, as a downturn in industrial activity has begun to spill over into the labor market. This was mainly attributed to a larger drop in employment in the manufacturing sector last month, which continued to see a decline for the 6th straight month, and the construction sector for 8 consecutive months. This comes as industrial output in November dropped 0.4% compared to the previous month, as the services and construction sectors remained weak, marking a fall for the 3rd straight month. Services output declined by 0.2%, driven by decreases in the finance and insurance sectors. The construction sector also experienced a drop in production for the 7th consecutive month as building activity slowed, setting a new record for the longest continuous downturn since 1997. But retail sales, an indicator of consumer spending, rebounded by 0.4% compared to the previous month after seeing declines in both September and October. The Finance Ministry officials said the month's report also placed less emphasis on concerns about inflation, as figures for December showed that consumer prices rose 1.9% year-on-year, marking the 4th consecutive month of inflation under the 2% mark. But with continued political unrest in the country as well as mounting concerns about potential changes in the trade environment during President-elect Donald Trump's second term, the government pledged to collaborate with relevant agencies and swiftly implement economic policy plans for 2025 to ensure economic stability. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
Right, and the government has reaffirmed its commitment to stabilizing the financial and foreign exchange markets amid much uncertainty here at home and abroad. During a macroeconomic meeting with top related officials on this Friday, Acting President Choi Sang-mok pledged to closely monitor domestic as well as international financial markets as the U.S. ushers in a second Trump administration next Monday, one that has vowed tougher tariffs. He also emphasized the importance of informing the international community about the strong fundamentals of the local economy to maintain overall confidence. Meanwhile, in a rather promising development, a deal to end a nuclear technology dispute has been sealed between Korea Electric Power as well as its nuclear power unit and the US's Westinghouse Electric. Our Park Gun-woo has details.
A 2-year-plus nuclear power dispute has come to an end. Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power and Korea Electric Power Corporation said on Friday that they have resolved their intellectual property dispute with the US-based Westinghouse Electric Company. They added this will pave the way for stronger cooperation in the global nuclear energy market while enhancing their competitiveness. The dispute began after Westinghouse filed a lawsuit in a U.S. court against KEPCO and KHNP in 2022 for unauthorized sharing of nuclear technology that it claimed to have the intellectual rights to. However, the South Korean companies maintained that there were no legal violations as they successfully reverse-engineered the technology. Details of the resolution between the two sides were not disclosed on Friday due to a mutual confidentiality agreement. But pundits say they may have agreed on collaborating in other regions, such as Europe, where Westinghouse has traditionally operated, among others. They also expect the end of the dispute to provide a green light for Korea to secure a nuclear power project in the Czech Republic after it was selected as the preferred supplier last year. Also on Friday, Industry Minister An Deok-kun welcomed the agreement, saying he looks forward to deeper cooperation with the U.S. This comes after a recent MOU on nuclear power exports and cooperation in related sectors between the two countries was signed last week. One expert also spoke about the significance of the agreement.
The two countries were in some sort of tangled relationship but started communicating and even signed the MOU. This means Korea can now negotiate with the Czech Republic more comfortably without any noise.
He added that it will also be a chance to remove potential uncertainties when exporting and operating nuclear reactors in other regions in the future as well. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News.
Over in the Middle East, despite the sealing of a ceasefire deal that is slated to start on Sunday local time, Israeli assaults against Hamas in Gaza continue to raise the Palestinian death toll. Our An Sang-jin has more.
Many rejoiced at the news of a 6-week ceasefire deal agreed between Israel and the Palestinian militant group Hamas. But just days before the deal is implemented on Sunday, Israel conducted more airstrikes in Gaza, killing at least 3 more Gazans and raising the death toll to 86 since the news of the ceasefire agreement. According to Gaza's Civil Defense Service, the death toll includes 23 children and 27 women. During the same period, more than 250 Palestinians have been injured in the airstrikes. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu convened a security cabinet meeting on Friday to discuss and ratify the ceasefire, which was successfully agreed on. According to local media, in a statement from Netanyahu's office, the Prime Minister has been informed of the release of hostages and has signed the deal. This comes after the vote was initially postponed, with Netanyahu blaming a last-minute disagreement with Hamas for the delay. A full cabinet meeting to give final approval to the ceasefire deal is expected to take place on Saturday. And considering the legal procedures, the first hostages could be released as early as the 20th. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said the deal will start on time despite what he called a last-minute loose end.
On the ceasefire, yes, I am confident, and I fully expect that implementation will begin, as we said, on Sunday. Look, it's not exactly surprising that in a process and a negotiation that has been this challenging and this fraught, you may get a loose end. We're tying up that loose end as we speak.
Following the ceasefire agreement, the European Union on Thursday pledged 120 million euros, or over 123 million US dollars, in aid for Palestine. According to European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen in a post on X, the ceasefire and hostage release agreement offers hope the region desperately needed, but added that Gaza's humanitarian situation remains grim. The aid will provide assistance to address acute food insecurity and malnutrition, healthcare assistance, water, sanitation and hygiene support, shelter and protection assistance. The latest humanitarian assistance to Gaza from the bloc brings the total value to over 460 million US dollars since 2023. An Song-jin, Arirang News.
This year, Korea marks 80 years of liberation from Japanese colonial rule, and in light of this occasion, a series of screen and stage productions have been scheduled to share with audiences here the selfless sacrifices of the country's independence activists. Our culture correspondent Song Yoo-jin reports.
텐요리모 다카이! 우린 이 말을 거부한다.
4 young men and women sing with passion, even with guns pressed into their backs. Their mission, to protect the Korean language from being erased during Japan's colonial rule. This homegrown musical, Yesterday's Poem, Tomorrow's Song, brings to life the struggles of young Korean independence fighters to defend their language and culture through poetry when forced to adopt Japanese. This is the first musical to use the poetry of Kim So-wol as its lyrics. Kim, one of Korea's most beloved poets, lived during the Japanese colonial period from 1910 to 1945.
Korea's independence movement was also about the power of words, poetry, and speech. We wanted to highlight not only the lyrical beauty of Kim So-wol's poetry, but also the deep emotions tied to our history and identity.
There are countless films, dramas, and performances about the independence movement. But our musical focuses on cultural efforts, young people who believed in fighting through creativity and expression.
Alongside the musical, other creative projects are honoring the sacrifices and resilience of independence activists, as this year marks the 80th anniversary of Korea's liberation from Japan. The film Baeksan, From Arirang to Balhae, is another example. The documentary tells a story of independence activist An Hee-jae, who ran a trading company that served as the financial backbone of the Korean provisional government in Shanghai.
An believed in nurturing people and fostering education to build a better future. He understood that independence required not just weapons, but also resources, networks, and platforms to sustain the movement. His trading company, similar to today's largest conglomerates, also helped train independence fighters.
Using advanced AI technology, director Jin vividly brought An's story to life on screen. Drone footage of Balhae Farm, a rice farm An founded to support displaced Korean farmers and fund the independence movement, shows his vision, a haven where independence grew through empowerment.
While armed resistance played a significant role in the independence movement, we must also recognize there were many figures like An, who worked behind the scenes to provide the critical resources that made such efforts possible.
These stories remind us that freedom was won through countless acts of courage in many forms. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer visited Kyiv on January 16th to sign a 100-year partnership agreement with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The agreement aims to strengthen security ties, defense cooperation, and economic collaboration, including supporting Ukraine's post-war reconstruction. During the visit, Starmer said the UK's commitment to Ukraine's sovereignty and security is steadfast and enduring. This visit is part of a broader initiative by European leaders to reaffirm their support for Ukraine ahead of U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration. Leaders from Germany and France have also recently visited Kyiv to show their solidarity with Ukraine. Iraq is finalizing a deal with U.S. oil firm Halliburton to develop the Nar bin Umar oil field. It aims to boost the oil field's production from approximately 50,000 barrels per day to 300,000 barrels per day. The deal also includes plans to produce gas from the same field. It's part of Iraq's broader strategy to increase its oil and gas production. Iraq also plans to increase its output from the West Korna-1 field operated by PetroChina to 750,000 barrels per day by the end of the year. It is also working with the China Petroleum Engineering and Construction Corporation on a $1.7 billion gas project. In Slovakia, an 18-year-old high school student has been detained after allegedly stabbing 2 people to death. The stabbings happened on Thursday local time in the small town of Spišská Staraves in the north of the country near the Polish border. A deputy principal and a student were killed. The suspect fled the scene but was immediately detained by the police. While stabbings are rare in Slovakia, similar incidents occurred in 2020 and 2022, where the suspects were also young students. The Slovakian ministers of Interior and Education visited the town and committed to implementing measures to prevent future attacks and improve safety for students and teachers. American filmmaker David Lynch has died at the age of 78. The director died due to complications from emphysema, a chronic lung condition, according to his family. His celebrated creations include Blue Velvet, The Elephant Man, and Mulholland Drive, all of which received Best Director Oscar nominations, and the TV series Twin Peaks. Lynch's career began with the 1977 classic Eraserhead, and he received an honorary Academy Award in 2019 for his contributions to cinema. While Lynch fought health challenges in recent years, he kept working on creative endeavors until his passing. Choi Ji-hee, Arirang News.
Even though the morning stayed freezing, the daytime today is extremely cold. The temperatures will be milder, similar to the temperatures at end of February during this weekend, with the daytime temperatures rising up to 7 degrees Celsius in Seoul. Meanwhile, the atmosphere along the East Coast is getting even drier. For the time being, there's no rain or snow forecast in these areas, so the dry weather will continue. With the strong winds, it is very important to be extra cautious due to the increased risk of wildfires. Tomorrow morning, Seoul will start at -4 degrees, Daejeon and Daegu at -5 degrees. Daily highs will move up to around 10 degrees in most areas, with Daegu and Busan and Jeju 10 degrees. Rain and snow is forecast for central parts of the country on next Monday. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Thank you for watching.